morning, and welcome to Driving Force Radio, where we seek to discover what drives today's leaders. On today's show, we are so honored to have members from the Kellogg Fellows Leadership Alliance joining us on the air today. And the beauty of the Kellogg Fellows Leadership Alliance is that it creates opportunities for over 1,500 Kellogg Fellows across the world to leave a legacy as a result of participating in leadership development programs through the Kellogg Foundation. And our first guest today is Dr. Larraine Matusak, a leadership scholar and the president of the consulting firm Larraine Associates. She has been a scholar and practitioner of leadership for many years in a wide variety of roles, and she served as the program officer in education and leadership and as the first leadership scholar at the Kellogg Foundation. Welcome to the show, Dr. Matusak.
Thank you very much, Jan. I'm pleased to be here with you on a sunny, beautiful day in Michigan.
Well, we're so happy to have you here. I have to ask you how you first got involved with the Kellogg Foundation, Dr. Matusak.
Well, I'll try to make that as brief as I can because it's a long story. But I was the president of Edison State College in New Jersey when I received a call from the CEO of the Kellogg Foundation asking if I would be interested in working with them in developing and actually running and managing a leadership program for mid-career individuals. After quite a bit of discussions and time, I decided to accept his offer, and the rest is history.
Well, I know that you do a lot of work with Kellogg in terms of leadership and leadership development. And you have said that quality leadership really demands courage and action. And so my first question is really, what do you mean by courageous leadership, Dr. Matusak?
Well, if you just look around you and read the newspapers and watch all of the pundits and what's going on with what they think the person was thinking when they said what they said, it's very, very annoying to me in this country, around the world, in our communities and everywhere. Do you really see courageous leadership? No. People are saying what they think somebody else wants them to say. They're sycophants. And that makes me very, very concerned. A courageous leader is not afraid of taking a risk. He or she is willing to not go along with the herd, but rather to do what is meaningful and good for the common good. Persons who take actions that are not self-serving, but are meant to address that common good. And my dream is that if we implement this award and like you, make it much more common knowledge and let people become aware of courageous leadership, that there'll be more of it to be found around the country and in our leaders. I don't have to give you examples. You have them right in front of you every day as you turn on your television of people who say what they think everybody else wants them to say.
Absolutely. And I think the interesting part of what you've said is that, those big crucial factors that are part of those courageous leaders is really their commitment and their passion to making a difference and their ability to really go out there and actually do something instead of just talk about something. Yes?
Exactly. I mean, I'm guilty, and I think everyone is at some point in time, of spending a lot of time sitting around complaining, but not doing anything to make a difference.
So how would you encourage people to get up and actually do, Dr. Matusak? Because I think that is a hard thing, because I think people sometimes are scared or, they're worried about their means or money or whatever it is. How do you encourage people to get out there and actually do?
It's really, that's a very, very difficult question to answer, Jan, because you are right. More than ever, I think that people are very fearful today. They're fearful that they'll lose their job if they become a whistleblower. They're fearful about their families, their lives, and what will their decision mean for their future. And so supporting mentorship is extremely, extremely necessary. And other than that, giving that person a pat on the back when they come to you to complain about something in order to make things better is a very, very good thing to do. I have found that if an individual comes to me with an idea that we have to veto because we don't have money or the time or the staff to handle that issue, if I say to that person, that is a great idea, maybe its time has not yet come because we haven't the ability to implement it, but it's a good idea, and let them leave feeling that what they had to say was accepted. It was good. He could make a difference, or she could make a difference if they could only implement it, and maybe in the near future we'll be able to do that. Now, that's a very roundabout way of answering your question, but what I'm saying is you have to have the courage to support courageous leadership, and I don't see much of that today.
Yeah, and that sort of leads me to this next question. You know, it sounds like courageous leadership then is really on the decline instead of on an increase. And what do you think about that? What are your thoughts about that? Why are we seeing this declining courageous leadership going on? Are we just too busy?
No, I think it's because we have, I'm at an age where I can look back and say, yes, we have really changed as a country. I see a terribly fearful nation. I grew up in what is now considered to be inner city Chicago. We walked everywhere. We feared nothing. We left our doors open. Now, you can live in the most wealthy suburbs and you've got a gated community, right?
Right.
We live with fear from infancy on. So it's very difficult to encourage and push people to be courageous. But there are people doing this. There are courageous leaders, such as our very first award that we gave 2 years ago, or 4 years ago now. This person was a judge, and he gave up his judgeship to make a difference for serving youth in the community because he didn't feel the justice system was dealing with them fairly. That's courageous leadership. So it's there.
Absolutely.
But how do we make it known? How do we make it known? You turn on ABC, NBC, CBS, all of those stations. What do they tell you about? All the negatives going on.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
I think courageous leadership is on the decline. I would hope that we could become a driving force before I die. If I could see this driving force of individuals who are having the courage to make decisions that reflect positively in the community for the common good.
Absolutely. And I know that with the Kellogg Fellows Leadership Alliance that you have helped form the Matusak Courageous Leadership Award. What prompted you to establish the award and what is the award really about and who can participate?
Okay. You asked several questions, so I'll try to remember to answer all of them. Number one, what prompted it? My anxiety that courageous leadership was simply going down the tubes, that all the leadership I see and work with are groups of individuals who are good people, but very fearful to really voice what could be done to better handle problems that would serve the common good. So that prompted me to say, I have to establish something out there. Then where do I want to do this? Well, remember, I worked with almost all of the fellows that you mentioned the numbers of. I really respect them. I know what they're doing. Many of them are courageous leaders. Most of them are. But we don't see them in the broad headlines anywhere. So I felt that this Kellogg Fellows Leadership Alliance was the place to place the award because I knew it would stay there. I knew it would be respected. I knew that its meaning and its purpose would not be altered if I housed it there. And so far, I have been very, very satisfied. Now, the third part of your question, I think, was how do we select individuals? Is that what you asked for?
Yeah. What's the criteria for participation in the Matusak Courageous Leadership Award?
Well, the basic criteria is to understand how we define leadership. For us, it's the passion and the ability to get positive results by encouraging others and by working with and through others to achieve the common good. It's not the man on the horse being the leader. It's really working with a group to achieve something. And true leaders are courageous people. That's very, very important. They can't be fearful people. They're not afraid to take a risk. And they don't waste a lot of time worrying about what other people might think of them. They're more concerned about doing what is right and effective.
Right.
And most important to me is that they make the attempt to weave. I like to use the term weave because it's intersecting threads of many different colors. But to weave a shared vision, to get others to align toward that goal. Because if you look behind you and you're just want to reach your vision and nobody's following you, you're not going to get there. So they're willing to...
Yeah, that's not really leading.
That's not, no. So they're willing to walk near the edge and even do things that raise the eyebrows of people around them in order to achieve that positive goal. And they really work with others to do what is right. That's about it.
Got it.
Criteria, yeah.
Well, and I want to come back to the first thing you said, that it's really about those leaders and their ability and passion to attain positive results for the common good. How do you define the common good, Larraine?
Well, again, if I live in a community where there's a great deal of poverty, the common good is how do we work to get the individuals in this community to work toward improving their status, their way of life? How can we improve what's going on in this community? And weaving that shared vision to achieve the common good. So what is the common good? It depends on the place. It depends on the purpose of what you want to achieve. I mean, Battle Creek, Michigan, the common good in Battle Creek, Michigan will be very different from the common good in Phoenix, Arizona. And
absolutely.
But the common good for our nation is we're looking at it in Washington, and I don't think anybody there really knows what the common good is for this country. I'm sorry I'm saying that on radio, but I feel it very, very strongly.
You've thrown that out there, so I've got to visit that. I was going to ask you, how do you see this debate that's going on in Washington? And, everybody would argue that they're working towards the common good in the Beltway. But it appears, as you watch the ABC, CBS, NBC News, that really the common good has gotten lost in the rhetoric. How do we get that back on track in D.C.?
Well, that's a very challenging question also. I worked in D.C. for a couple of years, and I became very aware that there was a moat dug all around Washington, D.C., and that people within it didn't have a clue how the rest of the country lives, thinks, works, and desires. And it made me very distressed and sad. And we keep electing people who go to Washington with great ideas and, I think, a passion to respond to the common good, and they get sucked up into the vacuum that we find there. How do we change it? It's each one of us must vote. What is the voting record in the United States? I'm always sad about that as well. But we have the ability to change what's going on by who and what we vote for.
Absolutely. But as we come back to this, and again, I know we got a little off topic here, but at the end of the day, we vote for who gets to D.C., but then when they get to D.C., they get a bit tainted, it seems, and then it gets off kilter, it gets off track. And so, it sort of seems like a circle of it's a tough circle to penetrate. Absolutely, at the end of the day. Dr. Matusak, what do you think about that?
Well, you're right, Jan. And what I think about that is that you're right, except you put the but in so I can put the except in. I don't think
absolutely.
Those who vote really vote for individuals who can achieve this common good. I think they vote for the person who had the most publicity, who had the most money to run the most ads. And that's the name they become familiar with. There may be an individual who didn't have as much money, who couldn't run as many ads, who is far better and stronger in facing reality and being a courageous leader, but that person is not going to get the votes because individuals watch TV. They don't read a lot. And what they respond to is what we have one individual here in Michigan. I will not mention the name. I counted the ads within 1 hour. He had 7 ads in 1 hour. I mute them.
I can feel your pain, Dr. Matusak. I have to come back to the award a little bit, and I know we've talked about the criteria, but who actually, I guess is what I want to say, who can be nominated for the award that is going on with the Kellogg Foundation?
It's not an exclusive award. Anyone who exhibits the characteristics that are spelled out, the criteria, may be nominated for the award. But only fellows, the fellows, the advisors for the fellows during the program, and the Kellogg Fellows Leadership Alliance program may nominate individuals for the award. And you say, well, that leaves out a lot of people. No. Remember, I said it's not exclusive. And so there may be an individual, me, or other fellows who will nominate someone they know within a community where they work or where they're plan to do work, who will nominate someone outside of the fellows, the advisors, etc. So we ask for nominations and we don't like to inform the potential candidate, because what if he or she doesn't make it? So we ask for nominations, and nominations are open to people outside the circle of Kellogg.
Well, and I know that nominations have to be submitted soon. I think June 15. Is that correct?
That is correct. And there is a committee that serves, and it works hard. So it works in winnowing down the applicants and being very clear. There has to be bravery there, too. The person has to have the courage to say, no, I don't think this person has all of the basic criteria we have designated, and this is why. So there is a committee, and that committee meets and winnows down the numbers and then selects one person. That's tough. They
select the winner of the award. And I know that the selection committee is really a who's who of leadership experts and fellows and various folks from all over the country. Can you talk a little bit about the selection committee and what their job really is?
Sure. I would prefer not to name names because that puts them in a tough spot. But the selection committee is made up, you're right, of individuals who have achieved some pretty good standing in the community. And there are about, I think there are 7 of us who are selected. And we come from many different walks of life so that we're not focused only on educators. So there are educators, there are business people, there are teachers, that's an educator, and community action people, so that we have this multifaceted view of the candidates.
Absolutely. And I know here at ICOSA, we really believe in that 4-pronged approach, that you have to truly engage academia, business, community, and government leaders and bring them together and collaborate and start those conversations to really create meaningful action in any form or fashion that's systemic and is going to cause true change. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And you almost articulated the purpose of the Kellogg National Fellowship Program that began back in 1981. That was exactly it. We looked for people who we could bring together who never talked to each other, economists with environmentalists, with business people, with educators, and we would have some really, really stunning discussions, passionate discussions over issues where for the first time individuals had to look beyond their own window and out the window through another's perspective. So you did a good job of that. Thanks, Jan.
Sure. And it's sort of the foundation of who we are as an organization and how we actually learned about the Kellogg Foundation and the work that the fellows do. And, we've been working on and off with the Kellogg Foundation here at ICOSA for the last year because we truly do believe that we must make change, but change really has to come from this inclusive conversation and this, this inclusive willingness to go out there and act. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But when it doesn't, you have to be willing to come back to the table and redraw the diagram, if you will.
Exactly. And we have to keep doing that on a broader and broader basis. As the Kellogg Fellows Leadership Alliance frequently points out, it's like the ripple effect. One pebble can create wave after wave after wave, and we have a broader constituency who is doing what we hope will make our world a better place to be.
Absolutely. And I know you've said before that criticizing others without offering alternative suggestions is cowardice, not courage. Right. Can you comment on that a little bit?
Well, what's to comment on? If I don't like what you're doing, Jan, I need to talk to you about it and tell you why I don't like it and what I think could be better. But we don't do that. We wait until the person has left the room and said, oh, God, she drives me crazy, right?
Right.
So that's not courage. And I think that if we encourage courageous leadership, which I think is what you're saying that you're acknowledging is very necessary, it happens in small places, in big places, in businesses, in your community, everywhere. And we have to have that courage to stand up and ask why. Why?
Right. And then I have to ask this question because we've talked a lot about the Kellogg Foundation and the Kellogg Leadership Alliance. And my question is can people learn more about the Kellogg Leadership Alliance, or do you have to be a fellow to participate?
You have to be a fellow to participate, but that doesn't mean you can't learn more about it. I'm certain that if you contact their office in Colorado or their office now, they have one office in Illinois, they'll send you all the information you need to know. The Kellogg Foundation itself no longer has a leadership development program. I know that they are considering designing a new form of Kellogg National Leadership Program, but I'm not with the foundation any longer, and I'm not certain what stage they're in that development.
Okay. Well, Dr. Matusak, you also mentioned that supporting mentorship is one of those key elements in really moving this conversation forward and helping that next round of courageous leaders. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you mean by supporting mentorship?
Well, supporting mentorship is critical. I'll put myself, I don't like to talk about myself, but put myself as an example. I have had some amazing opportunities in my life, and many of them happened because someone stood at my back and pushed me forward and gave me that pat on the back when I made some decisions or asked some questions. It's my responsibility now that I mentor others and help them, be there for them, push them forward when they seem to be lacking the courage to move forward. There are lots of people like me who have had opportunities that are amazing, and it needs to continue to be that ripple effect. We need to encourage others to carry on, to work with others, so that you have the pay it forward concept. That's what it really is all about.
I love that. Well, Dr. Matusak, thank you so much for being with us. I know that, here's what I think. In the words of Eleanor Roosevelt, she said, you must look fear in the face and do the thing you think you cannot do. And that certainly speaks to the work that Dr. Larraine Matusak is doing with the Kellogg Fellows Leadership Alliance and the Matusak Leadership Award. To learn more about the award or the work that they are doing, go to www.kfla.org/awards to download the nomination form, to look at the criteria, and to see what's going on over there. Because, as Dr. Matusak said, when courage is exercised, individuals can take action, and they display the courage to do what they know is right. And I couldn't agree with you more, Dr. Matusak, and we thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very, very much for giving me this opportunity, and I hope that we can meet sometime.
Oh, I do too. Hopefully we'll be up in the Michigan area, or when you're back down in Arizona, we'd love to get together with you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And as I said, if you want to learn more about the Matusak Courageous Leadership Award, the deadline for nominations is June 15th, 2012. And to learn more and to get the nomination form, you go to kfla.org/awards to download the nomination form. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we will have Bruce Ganger, the executive director of the Second Harvest North Florida nonprofit organization, with us. Welcome back to Driving Force Radio, where we seek to discover what drives today's leaders. We've been having a fantastic conversation about leadership and the courage that it takes to really be an active leader and to make change for the common good in communities. And in this segment, we have Bruce Ganger, the executive director of the Second Harvest in North Florida. It's a nonprofit organization committed to distributing food to hungry people through partner agencies and to educating the public about the causes and solutions to problems of domestic hunger. Bruce is also a Kellogg Fellow and currently serves as the co-chair of the Kellogg Fellows Leadership Alliance Board of Directors. Welcome to the show, Bruce.
Thank you very much.
Well, Bruce, as you know, we were talking to Dr. Matusak in our last segment, and she was talking a lot about the award. But I want to back up a little bit and talk about what you do and how you got engaged with Kellogg. So, can you tell us a little bit about Second Harvest and the work that you guys do?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Second Harvest North Florida is the food bank that provides food to hungry folks across 17 counties of North Florida. The 17 counties of North Florida through a network of 450 food pantries, feeding sites, agencies, social service agencies. Could be a food pantry at a church, could be a homeless shelter, could be after-school feeding programs for children from hungry families. Last year we distributed enough food for 17.5 million meals across that service area. So we are an affiliate of the Feeding America network of 202 food banks like us across the United States and Puerto Rico.
So talk a little bit about the hunger issue in North Florida and around the country.
Well, it's growing, and it's going to continue to grow. It's in the 9 months that I've been here and in the little over 2 years that I've been affiliated with Second Harvest, we've seen a significant spike in the demand for food. Folks who are coming to us and to our member agencies today are working people. These are working families. It's folks who, when gas was $3 a gallon, were struggling, and now that it's approaching $4 a gallon, how do I come up with that extra $20 a week to fill my tank when I'm struggling to fill it at $3 a gallon? And where in my monthly budget or my weekly budget is that money going to come from? My landlord needs his money, and the electric company needs their money, and the utilities and insurance and everything has to happen. And so the push for many families becomes food. So we see the incidence of parents who are making a decision every day whether they eat an evening meal or their children do. We see situations sometimes where the parents eat the evening meal and the children don't because they've received a free or reduced fee breakfast and lunch during the day, and maybe they were fed some sort of a small meal or a light meal at an after-school program, and maybe the parents went all day and didn't eat. So families, wow. Working families are making these decisions every day. And as I said, as the cost of living for all of us continues to increase, for those who are on the bubble and are just on the edge of trying to keep the dots connected in their life, those folks are starting to fall over the edge. And part of the safety net in the community, and one of our first needs for all of us every day is food. And this becomes something that for more and more families in the communities, children, homebound elderly are making these decisions every day, and more of them are put in the position of having to come to us, to our peer organizations across the country for assistance.
I have to salute you for the work that you do. I know that we did an interview a few weeks ago, and I think the statistic here for Colorado, and I don't know for Florida, is 1 in 5 children are defined as hungry here in our state. And I know that number is growing. So that's certainly a disturbing metric as we go forward. But I want to talk now about how you got involved with the Kellogg Fellows Leadership Alliance and what you do there.
Right. I was a part of a Kellogg Fellows, Kellogg National Fellowship Program. So I am a Kellogg Fellow, a proud Kellogg Fellow, and was chosen by Dr. Matusak and a panel of other folks to participate as a Kellogg Fellow way back in 1987. And after my Kellogg Fellowship ended in 1990, I continued to stay involved with and wanted to stay connected to my fellow fellows. My group, not only my class of 42 of us that went through the program together, but also trying to understand this amazing group of people who had been collected and aggregated together, people who came from all parts of society together to participate in this 3-year experience in learning about the issues of leadership and how to be more well-rounded and broadened leaders. It was a natural opportunity for me to try to stay connected with them and to continue to leverage the experiences that they bring and also to draw from them the inspiration to continue to work and make tough decisions and participate in difficult situations. And I found that inspiration through the Kellogg Fellows Leadership Alliance. I now have the pleasure and am honored to have been asked to be the co-chair of the board for the Kellogg Fellows Leadership Alliance, and will serve in that capacity until 2014.
Well, congratulations on that. I personally know several of the fellows that are here in the Rocky Mountain area, and they are amazing leaders and an amazing group of people to work with, and certainly have lots of horsepower and passion and all of that. When we talked to Dr. Matusak about the Matusak Courageous Leadership Award, she talked a lot about that there's a lot of fear going on in the world today. And I have to ask you, why is it so important to take time to celebrate courageous leadership right now?
This is probably said, and I don't mean it to sound trite, but there's probably never been a time in our history, given all the issues that we face in our economy, the issues we face in our healthcare system, the issues we face in our educational system. This is a time, if there was ever a time in the history of the United States, this is the time for people to rise up and establish themselves and put themselves out there as leaders, saying, come on, I've got an idea. I've proven that this works. Here's a model that can be there. And many times it's going to be breaking traditions. There is a lot of fear out there. We see it in, as we get closer to this political season of ours. We're already hearing all of the rhetoric and all of the bashing back and forth. They're not coming forth with any solutions. They're just telling us why we shouldn't vote for that guy or why we shouldn't be in favor of that legislation. They're not coming up with the inspired or inspiring leadership positions and thoughts to come forward. That's what's missing, and that's what takes courage. It's always easier for people to follow along. It's always easier for people to talk amongst themselves. If I could quote from an old Saturday Night Live skit, it's always easier than it is to just rise up and say, follow me, we need to go do this, this is the right thing to do, it's important that it happens now, come on, let's go. And that's why it takes courage to lead. It's hard being a leader. It's difficult to step out of one's comfort zone. It takes intention, it takes commitment, it takes passion, it takes courage to now go forward and participate in something and lead something that is going to perhaps be a little bumpy, that may not be comfortable, that may not be popular, and that's where the courage comes in. Like I said, if there was ever a time, now's the time.
Well, and I think you're absolutely right that now is the time. And as you said, as we head into this political season, we just see the bashing right now. So is there a solution to really come down to the conversation of passion and courage and intention and commitment that you just mentioned? And how do we make this change? Who's going to lead the charge, Bruce?
The charge is going to be led, as the charge has always been led in our history, through inspired and inspiring leaders. The people who could gather the masses and come up with good ideas and stay the course. Those are the people that will lead us forward. That's where that will come from. And at the core of those people, if you look at all of the inspired and inspiring leaders that we've had in our history, one of the core and fundamental characteristics that they all brought to the table was courage. They had the courage to lead. They had the courage to step out. They had the courage to be steadfast in their commitments and their convictions, and they were able to convince people that they were correct, and people followed them, and because they were inspired by them. And then those folks went to their own communities and began to inspire those communities of people to follow along. So it's going to come, as it always had, from inspired and inspiring leaders. And those leaders will come from among us. And I believe we saw that. I believe we saw that in the last presidential election. And we saw someone who inspired us, someone who was inspiring to us, and he stepped in front. And will history look back on and say, this was the best president ever? Can't really say that. But the point is, he inspired us. He gave us a vision. He helped us believe that there was hope and that there was an opportunity. He challenged us to do things differently. It requires different thinking. It requires different acting to be a courageous leader. And that's where this next tranche of leaders, where this next army of leaders, and it may be an army of 2, it may be an army of 6, it may be an army of 1 million, but it will come from those folks who have the conviction and the courage to step out in front and lead the rest of us.
I love that you keep using the word courage, because I think it does take courage. And here at ICOSA, we are so committed to this larger conversation of connecting leaders and then collaborating amongst ourselves to create positive change, because we really want to see a world that's better for our kids and our grandkids and all of those folks that will come after us. And we want to see that change happen for the better. And so I have to ask you, because you've got a great history with Kellogg, but also in your own professional career, when do you feel most courageous in your own leadership?
I feel it every day, and I'll tell you where the inspiration for me comes from. When I meet a mom of 2 adolescent children who lost a job 15, 16 months ago, and for the very first time in her life, she found herself coming to one of our mobile distributions, and I won't take you through the details of it, but the point is we load up a truckload of food and we take it out into struggling communities. The agencies that we work with know who all the hungry folks are locally, and they get them there when the truck arrives. And we distribute this food to 250, 300 families. This is a mom who has been coming to one of our distributions for just over a year now. She's been looking for work as hard as she possibly can. She's raising her 2 adolescent children, keeping them educated, keeping them motivated, making sure that they don't lose their hope. And she comes running up to one of my staff members and says, I just want to thank you. I've been coming here and getting this food for the last year. And she said, it's a week ago, my doctor took me off my diabetes medicine. And so my health is better. I've lost 15 pounds. I've gone back and learned how to cook again. And it's all due to the kinds of food that you folks are bringing us. And she was speaking specifically to the fresh fruits and vegetables that we provide in these distributions. So here's a woman who is trying to figure out how she's going to pay her rent. She's trying to figure out how she's going to educate her children. She's looking frantically for a job. And what she's focused on right now, the success, the hope in her life, is that she's lost 15 pounds and no longer has an issue with diabetes. And she's learned how to cook again, and her children are healthier. And that kind of attitude, that kind of optimism, that kind of hope in one's life, when so many other things that swirl around her every day are traumatic and potentially catastrophic for many, she finds that hope and that inspiration in her day that she wants to run down one of my staff members and go, I just want to thank you for this. Well, boy, that makes me want to get up the next morning and go even harder to try to take that on. So here's a woman who, and I have thousands of these examples that I won't bore you and the listeners with. But, this is a woman who inspires me. So she is a leader in her own way. She is someone who is stepping out, who is overcoming obstacles that many of us wouldn't even know how to deal with, let alone overcome, because we don't know about safety net in our communities, right?
Right.
So this woman inspires me to come in every morning and make tough decisions and make tough calls and break a little glass and, step on some toes and maybe get grouchy with somebody. But it's all folks like her that inspire me to go do the things that I do. So where I find some of my courage to do uncomfortable things, to step out of a comfort zone, is because I have thousands of people like that every day who depend on the outcome of our work here and our ability to continue to source and find and make available healthy, nutritious food for the hundreds of thousands of people in our service area who don't know when they're going to eat next. So that's where it comes from for me.
I love that. And I love the story. And I love that you're out there making a difference in the lives of families and individuals out there. And just like you said, the leader, she's sort of her own leader in her own right. And I love that you recognize that. I want to come back to the award, the Matusak Courageous Leadership Award. What does it mean for a network of Kellogg Fellows? I know there's over 1,500 of you, I believe, around the world. What does it mean for those fellows to honor courageous leaders, and how does that work?
One of the things that Dr. Matusak said to us and said to every one of us, Larraine's question was always, so what? We'd come back with an idea or a plan, and she'd just look at us and she'd go, so what? And what she was doing was challenging us to stretch, to think differently, to act differently, to go beyond just the kinds of conversations that we've just had. Go beyond a comfort zone. Go think broadly. Go step off the cliff and trust that you've done the right things to get yourself in position so you won't get hurt, so it will be a successful landing. And so the reason we want to continue, the reason we have and the reason we want to continue to honor this recognition and to solicit these is to continue to keep this dialogue alive, to continue the opportunities to network and connect, to keep this amazing group of 1,500 people active and involved and with each other, because we all have a shared experience in our Kellogg Fellowship, but more fundamental than that, we all have at our core this desire to go in and do things better and differently than what they've been in whatever situation we find ourselves, whether it's the media or healthcare or education or in business or wherever it might find us, or in running a food bank. We all have that one common core trait. So we want to continue to reach out into the community, whether it's among Kellogg Fellows or out in the general population, the general population, say, look, we're looking for people inspired and inspiring leaders, and we want to honor them and hold them up as an example of people who are on a daily basis making a difference, a significant difference in their communities through their courage and through the acts that they are making every day on behalf of making those communities better.
And I think Dr. Matusak said that to participate in the award process, you have to be nominated by a Kellogg Fellow. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
And the deadline for nominations is June 15th, and you can find out more about that award at kfla.org/awards. So, Bruce, I want to come back to another question about leading courageously. I mean, clearly you're doing that every day, and you're getting up and you are facing big, hairy issues that are out there in our communities. I mean, you're talking about hunger, but you're also dealing with homelessness and poverty and job loss and all kinds of different things touch your world every single day. And sometimes that's got to take its own toll. And I imagine that there's got to be some form of fear of failure every once in a while. So what can we all do in our own lives, in your opinion, to lead more courageously and to help encourage others to do the same?
I think one of the things leaders need to understand is how to take care of themselves. So someone who is facing tough issues, tough decisions on a daily basis needs to make sure that they have someone that they can go to, someone who will help them, a sounding board, someone who will help take their own temperature, so that they are fresh, that they are thinking, that they are able to continue to do the tough things and make the decisions that need to be done. We all have those opportunities every day. They come to us in many different forms. It's an uncomfortable decision that has to be made at work that may have to do with people. It's something that happens when you face someone that who may be coming to a homeless shelter for help, and maybe there's no room at the inn. Well, boy, I sure don't want to turn them away. Okay, great. So reach out and get that kind of help for them. Make that extra effort. Those in a community as we live in the United States today, those opportunities face us every day. There's one interesting commercial, and forgive me, I can't remember the company that runs the commercial. It seems to me it's a financial services company, where the commercial goes around in a big circle on how somebody is doing something small to help somebody else, somebody who's going to step off a curb in front of a traffic, or somebody who stops and helps somebody who dropped something, they pick it up. Gosh, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name, but it's those small acts. It's not anything big. It's nothing that's going to make the 6 o'clock news, but it's those small acts, those small encounters that we have in our life every day, that when you add them all up, they become game changers in the general community. And I think that's what I would challenge people to do. That's what I ask my own staff to do. That's what I ask the people that we support to do, is look for those small opportunities, because when they all add up at the end of the day, they become game changers for somebody, or they start to make a dent in the needs of a community.
I love how you said that small acts can add up to be game changers in the community. And I couldn't agree with you more. We've sat here and we've talked about leadership, but I have to ask you, how does this play in your larger world? I mean, obviously you have a job that is for the common good, and that does that. But how does that play out in the other places? Are you out mentoring other people? What are you doing in your own community, Bruce? That is that small act that's giving back.
It's small acts of identifying. I have 3 recent college graduates that are bright, talented, energetic young people that have this new pedigree that they've been assigned, but they are bright, talented kids who, as they step out into the business world for the first time, just need somebody to help mentor them and help sort of sand off some of the rough edges, if you will, as they go forward. So I spend time mentoring young people. I spend time speaking to organizations locally. I'm actively involved in a homeless coalition where we are talking and helping to create a system to catch people who are in transition. An example is a woman who works for one of the restaurants headquartered here in Jacksonville. That she's working double shifts at a restaurant. Her husband's lost her job. They have 3 kids, and now all of a sudden they're being moved out of their apartment because they can't pay the rent and they can't pay the utilities. So we're helping her with transitional housing, helping her identify some opportunities for transitional housing. It's going out and working with even businesses and being an advocate with the political establishment here in Northeast Florida to talk to them about the issues that the people who elected them to office are facing now. So they're small things. They're not big things. They're never going to make the 6 o'clock news. But in my own way, these are things that are necessary in order to continue to move the ball forward. And it's, as members of this greater community, at some point we all have to, in our own world, we have to stop kicking the can down the road, because the time for that has come to an end. And we've got to all find those small situations in our daily lives where we can make a very small difference and understand that our small act of doing the right thing for somebody may cause them to do it for somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. Well, if you keep doing that, you've begun to touch and make and move the needle in many different ways across the community. And again, it's not a big, major, not going to make the 6 o'clock news. So when we talk about courageous leadership, the applications that come in to us are not necessarily huge situations. They are, in many ways, they are just a consistent pattern of making a difference that when you roll it all up, it does become significant. And I think we all possess the opportunity to do that.
Well, Bruce, how do people learn more about Second Harvest North Florida?
They can go to our website is the best way. Our website is wenourishhope.org. They can learn about the programs. They can learn about the work we do, and if there's folks even in the Rocky Mountains or the Delta region of Mississippi or in Seattle or in Puerto Rico, we can hook them up with local food banks. We can hook up with local food banks all across the United States and Puerto Rico if feeding people is of particular interest to them.
Well, Bruce, thank you again. And to learn more about the Matusak Community Leadership Award, go to kfla.org/awards. And as you said, Bruce, the economy has been a game changer in so many lives, and people who never thought they would need help are really needing it right now. So remember that those small acts can be game changers. Go out there and make a difference this weekend and every day that you can. Those small acts do make a difference. Have a great weekend.